This is Harvard on the Map, presented by the Harvard Graduate School of Design, covering innovative ideas and thought leaders in digital cartography, Earth observation, and all things geospatial, with your host, Jennifer Horowitz.
Hello, and welcome to Harvard on the Map. I'm here with Scott Yim and Will Meyer, both of whom are senior product managers at Strava, an app I'm a huge fan of personally, and it's really great to have you on the program. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, Jennifer. Excited to be here.
Okay, so let's get started. To start, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your professional journey to Strava, and for listeners in the Boston area who may not be familiar with the app, although who isn't, a bit more about the platform itself.
Yeah, I can start on that front. So Strava is the subscription platform at the center of connected fitness, and with about 100 million athletes across 195 countries. We're the largest sports community in the world. And we say internally at Strava, you know, when you sweat, you're an athlete. So that's how we define it, and really broadly applicable there. And it's a platform for your entire active life, in whatever way you define it. And we support over 30 activity types. So you can upload your walks, your runs, your workouts, really everything in between there. And our goal is to connect athletes to each other to find their personal best, and experience more joy through the sports that they love. So that's kind of a high level there. Fun fact, our co-founders, Mark Gainey and Michael Horvath, actually as teammates on the crew team here at Harvard in the late 80s. And that's where that initial spark happened for Strava. So,
wow, that makes sense. They're always the crew guys, because they have to drop weight for certain things, and they're so aware of fitness. That makes actually a lot of sense. I did not know that at all. But yeah, huge fan of the platform, as I'm sure many of our Boston listeners are. So how did you both find your way to Strava? What was your sort of professional journey there?
Yeah, I can start on that. So I was, based in startups in New York City post-college. I was a Quincy House grad at Harvard College here, undergrad. And, most recently is working in consumer and subscription products at a couple of different brands. A fintech brand called LearnVest, right before Strava at Squarespace. And then I went to grad school at NYU Stern, and was really looking for a company where the mission and the people kind of matched in terms of my personal and my professional interests. Athletics have been a huge part of my life. So it's, really exciting to work on a product that makes people's lives more active, and is generally, we say internally that, it's generally people's favorite part of their day in a lot of ways. And so, so that's kind of my quick and short path to finding Strava is actually through an application just called on the website on the careers page, and we are hiring a ton. So if there's anyone listening and interested, please feel free to apply. And I think the pandemic really just opened up the opportunity for me to pursue other jobs that were not located in New York. So I'm really grateful for that, because, Strava is headquartered in San Francisco, and then has an office in Denver and a couple of different locations now around the world. But pre-pandemic, it would have required really being in person in a specific location. But yeah, here I am based out of New York and able to work here. So that's really my journey.
Interesting. Wow, I did not know all these different facets. I've in a non-creepy way, LinkedIn stalked you, so I knew some parts of your background. But it's interesting to hear your own professional journey. That's really cool. And you're, I was yeah, that's very cool. Didn't know that also. Amazing. Will, how did you find yourself at Strava?
Yeah, so kind of an interesting path, and people are always surprised when they hear this. But I studied econ and history in undergrad. Had a chance to race D1 Nordic ski racing at University of New Hampshire, an undergrad originally from Montana. So after that, I was on the East Coast, and I really liked econ, and I thought about doing, something more serious academically in economics, maybe getting a PhD. And I got this awesome opportunity to do a research assistant program at the Federal Reserve Board of Governors down in Washington, D.C. And so I went down there, a great year and a half of working with a lot of PhD economists, helping do briefings for the Board of Governors, and a lot of just interesting exposure. I really, enjoyed that, chance to really learn, experience a new environment right out of school. But I realized there that getting a PhD in economics, was probably not for me. I was looking for a little, I was always interested in technology, looking for a little bit of a faster pace and, be able to, really make an impact, at a bigger level. I think, working at the Fed, it was awesome, but it's a huge organization. And I just saw how long some of that kind of research process could be. So I started thinking about, taking some of those skills and in data and analytics, and seeing what I could do with them in the tech sector. And I really wanted to get back west, being from Montana. And so I started applying to a few technology jobs, and really kind of stumbled upon Strava. Also applied cold, same as Scott, and felt like this perfect combination of my background in endurance athletics and Nordic ski racing, and professional interest in data and consumer technology and product. So 5 years ago, actually, as of last month, 2017, joined Strava, and our, I think 2 or 3 person product analytics team. Then switched over to product management a year and a half or 2 years in, and over the past 2 years, I've had this really awesome opportunity to build one of our core subscription products around maps and routes, recommended routes in the mobile apps, and we've really built out kind of a lot of our overall offering there. Work with a super talented team, and it's just been this awesome journey where kind of this, like I was mentioning, combination of personal and professional interest, growing company, and of course over the last 2 years, the company's really, with a switch to a core subscription business model and some of the growth we've seen in people looking to be active during the pandemic, the company's really taken off and is a great spot. So it's been really fun to see that evolution, over the past half a decade now, and be involved in building some awesome maps experiences for athletes.
That's amazing. Wow, a Nordic skier. That's super cool. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, well, I could keep you guys here all day, and I have many follow-up questions, but I maybe will ask you in a personal context, not in a radio show context. So next question. So how do you see Strava's digital maps platform as a part of user experience? Do you feel it's integral? And what are some of the metrics users seem to enjoy or benefit from the most in gaining insights on their movement?
Yeah, definitely integral. That's a great question. So Will oversees the overall maps platform and experience. I'll let him speak to some of the specific aspects of that. But in terms of the user experience, Strava's platform is really built around the people, the places, and really the camaraderie and competition that drive athletes. So it's all about motivation, whether that's getting out on a walk around the block, or really going the distance on that hike or that run. And we just really aim to make the storytelling aspect of representing your entire activity more authentic. Is a huge value internally that we are striving for all of the time. And we want to really provide athletes with the tools and the means to best represent themselves and their active lives, whatever that means for them. So yeah, that's kind of the I'll give to Will and just pass it off on the maps.
Yeah, as Scott was mentioning, for Strava, maps are really a key piece of storytelling of your activity and exploring where you're going to go next in your activity. So if you think about, for the folks who aren't familiar with Strava, we have kind of a core social feed, and maps are front and central there for any outdoor GPS activities. And so, example of that storytelling piece is we've developed ways to visualize elevation gain, heart rate data, and pace changes along your activity route. And it really serves as sort of that kind of key story of like where you actually went. And then on the discovery side, we offer route suggestions in our mobile app and more detailed route planning on the web for our subscribers. And the really cool thing about this is that it's powered by the collective movement patterns of the Strava community. So if you imagine all of that global heat map data, we can take all that data and provide really smart routing choices. So you're going on a path that's meant for that activity, whether it's cycling, whether it's running. And that's really what we think is the best in the world solution for helping you find where to go when you're looking to be active. Core focus on run and ride, but we're really expanding broadly, because I think in the long run we want to build the map for athletes. So if you think today, most maps have been built for cars, and we want to build a map that's more focused around human powered travel. So it means highlighting things like trails and parks versus highways, and really showing where people actually go. And I think it's interesting too, if you go look on Google Maps today, or your Apple Maps, your favorite mapping provider, you'll notice that the most prominent parts are really around roads and around places that are meant for cars. And so I think the opportunity we're really excited about is building a map that's centered around human powered travel. And we think we're in a unique spot to do that with the largest community of athletes, 100 million registered so far. And so we're really excited to go, build something that we don't think has really been solved in the world yet, which is a map centered for people and centered for active motion. And I think that's one of the the really motivating vision for our maps team here at Strava.
It's wonderful that Strava has a maps team. I feel like there are certain platforms that have a maps component, like ancestry.com, or there's all sorts of, Red Bull has on their app, they have a maps platform, but they don't have a specific maps team. So it was really cool to see that Strava has an actual maps, division, which seems like must be a very important part to the platform. That's partly why I wanted to talk to you guys. Yeah, it's very cool you're on the maps team. That's awesome.
It's cool. I mean, it's just when you think about especially our outdoor activities, it's that kind of story of where you were in the world is so important to that places and community side of Strava.
Fair. Yeah, absolutely. So that leads me perfectly into the next question, which is, I'd love to hear more about Strava's global heat map. It's just really pretty. And I wonder how the heat map, have you found, has helped accelerate new insights for both you guys on the product side or on the user side. What the insights have been gained from that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Glad you enjoy the visuals. I think the team takes a lot of pride in how it shows up. The global heat map, we really think of it as sort of a reflection of our community. So 100 million athletes and all this awesome data on the public activities of where they've run, swam, skied, and generally been active. And, I think the core insight we really derive as a company from that is what I mentioned before, which is those routing products. So, whether you're, you're in the Boston area, so maybe you're up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire and you're looking to plan a hike this weekend, or you're just looking, to commute from Cambridge into Boston, we have activity data, whether it's the hiking in the White Mountains or the, bike commuting in Boston, everywhere. And so when, if you're going to plan a route on web, or you're going to get a route on mobile, all of that heat data is, transformed into, popularity scores more or less, and we can really start to tell you, get you on a route or find a new place to go where you can be confident that a bunch of other active people have gone. And that's, I think, the really unique part of the heat map is the visualization is really, it's pretty, as you said, and it's really fun to explore. It's great inspiration, but I think for us, it's kind of how do we turn that into actionable advice, and that's really through the routes products for our athletes.
There, yeah, I've often been on on different open source geospatial repositories on GitHub, and I see different folks from Strava, and it seems like they're really always contributing. And it's just really interesting that there's a Strava maps engineering team. And it was interesting to hear about the heat map and how that factors in, especially given that it's driven on the Mapbox platform. And interesting to hear. So next question. So I'm curious, given the time that we're in, how you saw mobility patterns in Strava's heat map or in Strava's use change during the pandemic, and if there were any unexpected spatial trends or correlations you saw in examining how people were moving during that period.
Yeah, well, the bottom line here is that, just this huge increase in overall activities, and, even just joining Strava during the pandemic. So in terms of our metro data, and I think for anyone who's listening is not familiar, our metro is our free platform to help city planners and other states and basically public service, people looking to improve mobility to use our data to kind of help perform, change, improve bike lanes, walking infrastructure, et cetera. And, basically, one of the big changes we saw on the metro side, I was talking to our team on this, was that, the amount of time it took for city planners to go from, sort of seeing new increase in ridership or increase in desire to be outside to actually building a bike lane decreased a lot. So we saw lots of sort of impact from this growth in the platform, kind of translating to into this metro product of helping city planners and municipalities provide better infrastructure for walking and biking. So that was kind of one of the sort of interesting takeaways during the pandemic, is just this massive growth in overall ridership, and then kind of how that was flowing into some of these decisions on the more local level.
Scott, did you notice any interesting trends in use for Strava, whether it was maps or otherwise? Were there things that you, I mean, it's a platform that tracks movement, right? Were there things that or meetings where you thought, do we have to reevaluate parts of the product given that there's going to be less mobility because people just can't get out given some of the restraints? Or did that not play a role because people were outside and they wanted to run even if they weren't with other people? I'd just be curious how that impacted.
Yeah, I think we definitely saw a lot of different movement changes. I mean, one in particular around commutes. I mean, that was just such a huge part of how people in their day-to-day, like on their way to and from work, would sometimes get their active life in, right? It's either they're walking or biking to work, at least in urban areas. And so, we've also seen an uptick in indoor activities, as you can imagine, with the pandemic. And so the mix shift in terms of how somebody was working out and remaining active has shifted pretty tremendously. And so I think now, as we are in, I guess I don't want to call it post-pandemic, but as this has become somewhat the new normal, we're constantly trying to better understand what our athlete needs are and how we can better serve them. And so, I think the commute, the indoor activities just kind of have added to the diversity of how people approach their day-to-day. But as Will mentioned, a huge increase in overall activities at different times of the day too. It's not just before and after work, but also sometimes during work, with kind of the increase of remote work. As you can imagine, people are getting out and in the middle of the day trying to get their sunlight and their active life in. So yeah, it's been really interesting to watch the trends, and I'm excited to see kind of what happens in the next year or two as well. Because again, this is such an unprecedented time. And I feel like there are things that we probably don't even know yet that are use cases that we can solve for and provide value to our athlete community by addressing.
Fascinating. Yeah, well, I end my my radio show, since it's a geo, by asking my interviewees to describe a time where they were lost, whether that's physically in person or metaphorically in your life or career, and how you found your way back again. So if either or one of you wants to take that, either is great, both is great, one is great, whatever, whoever feels comfortable, that would be great.
Sure, I can go first. Great question, and really it fits with the geo theme of the show. I think I take it back to what I talked about earlier in the show, which was, in Washington D.C. after school. I was, like I said, I really enjoyed my time there in a lot of ways, but long run, in the long term, I knew I was kind of missing it. Growing up in Bozeman, Montana, outdoors has been a big part of my life, and I was really missing that connection to outdoor lifestyle and kind of the sports competition aspect I left behind with ski racing, and really getting closer to home, being out somewhere on the West Coast. And I happened upon Strava. I think the exact way was, I was on LinkedIn, and someone I knew from ski racing came up in the people you may know section, and I was like, man, Strava, that seems like a cool company. And I went and looked in a little bit more, and anyways, applied online, and it was kind of this this strong intuitive sense right away that was this combination of seemed like an awesome brand, sports, which was I'd always been interested in, geo element, and a subscription business. So it all kind of seemed to add up right. And it was in San Francisco, and kind of feel really lucky to have found that, because I think it was really this awesome combination of like I mentioned before, personal and professional interest, and made a move out to San Francisco. And I think the sort of takeaway from all of that is I feel like luck played a big factor in sort of stumbling upon this through a friend of a friend on LinkedIn, but also just being kind of open to different opportunities. And at the end of the day, I think what really I remember about that process is I was talking to some other companies as well, but I just had this really strong intuition that Strava was going to be the right fit for me. And so I think, my view advice there is to, keep an open mind and sort of trust your intuition, because only you will know what's sort of right or interesting for you. And that's worked out really well for me here. So I feel incredibly lucky and grateful, and get to work with awesome colleagues like Scott. So Scott, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Will. A lot of that resonates. Just echoing Will in terms of it also being luck. I would say that there's a good portion of that. There's a bit of self-belief and conviction that needs to happen as well, that I would encourage others to consider. I think on my end, just to go back to your question, Jennifer, I'd say I was probably in my mid-20s at the time, and really pursuing a breadth of diverse things that brought me fulfillment inside and outside of work. So that, short list is tech and startups, diversity, equity, and inclusion work that's really close to my values and what I believe in and stand for. But I was, traveling a ton for a job at the time, and fitting in workouts any chance I could get, either alone or with a friend. And just feeling like a lot of that was kind of fragmented in terms of my day to day. And just really believing that I could find a way to integrate that somehow, and find a place for myself that I could combine those personal and professional interests. And so, I applied through the careers page, as I mentioned, and yeah, again, that's kind of where I think the luck comes in a little bit. And just from my initial conversations, feeling like I belonged, and that I really felt like this could be something where I would be part of something larger than myself. And in terms of the values, just really speaking to me. So Strava has been such a great place for that. But I think, the lesson there is, to really look inward and reflect on kind of what motivates you. And then also just going for it. If there's a vision you have set out for yourself, it doesn't have to take 10 years in order to get there, that it can be something, that, you decompose and you make small progress on. And I think as a product manager, that's kind of the mentality that we usually try to take, is how do we get to that value faster? And in this case, it's not for the athlete and our community, but really for ourselves. And, no one's going to do that for you.
Well, thank you for sharing your story to both of you. And I've had a lot of geo folks on this program, folks from places people don't necessarily know, but are big in geo, Esri, NVIDIA, folks that do geo work, but aren't maybe as well known just by your, just your average person. But everyone, when I in the last 3 days, I've saying, oh, I had this radio interview. Everyone knows the Strava platform, which I think speaks to the power of it. Every grad student that I catch up with coffee with knows it or uses it. I myself use it, and it's really cool to talk to folks who are really building this platform out. And it's great that its origin story really started here at Harvard. So that's on the water. So that's pretty cool. Thank you guys for your time, and I hope to see you around.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Jennifer.
much, Jennifer.
Yeah.
It's great chatting today.
Yeah, absolutely.